On behalf of our Board of Governors and all of our members, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Atlantic Golf Club. We especially welcome the players and congratulate each of you in qualifying for the 30th Mid-Amateur Championship. This is the Players' Dinner, and it is graciously hosted by the USGA. I am Dennis Susskind, the General Chairman. We at the Atlantic Golf Club are blessed with a fantastic group of professionals. Our whole staff has worked tirelessly to make this the best mid-am ever. But you, the players, will be the judge of that at the end of the day. I would just like to mention a few of our group. Rick Hartman, our head professional, and his staff. Rick has been at Atlantic for 15 years. Rick is just a fantastic head pro. He's a little bit headstrong, and some quietly say that Rick actually runs this club, and who am I to argue? Our superintendent, Bob Raden, was here and actually helped supervise the construction of Atlantic over 20 years ago. Now, we that play golf all know that golf course superintendents dance to the beat of their own drum. In Bobby's case, he makes Bill Murray's character in Caddyshack seem normal. But the truth of the matter is, our course speaks to the unbelievable job Bob and his crew have been doing all these many years. We are truly blessed to have these two individuals as helping us run this great facility. Jim Mathers has been our general manager for 17 years and keeps our board and staff all in line. Our chef of 16 years, George Ryan, is second to none, and you will know this to be factual when you have the pleasure of experiencing his breakfast or lunch during your visit. Karen Coy, our former assistant general manager, came back 2.5 years ago to lead the charge as our executive director of the Mid-Am, and she has done an unbelievable job pulling it all together. I ask you to join me in thanking our entire staff, and I mean our entire staff, for their hard work. I said this was a short program, so now I have the pleasure of introducing Steve Smyers, the USGA Tournament Chair. Steve.
Good evening. On behalf of the United States Golf Association, the members and staff of both the Atlantic Golf Club and the Bridge Golf Club, we want to welcome you to this year's competition. The Mid-Amateur, through the years, has grown in pride and prestige. And we're thrilled to be on an area so rich in golfing history. The Long Island area has hosted 5 U.S. Open championships, 3 within the last decade. In 2013, Long Island is going to host the United States Open Ladies Golf Championship at Sabonic Golf Club just down the road. And in 2013, the Walker Cup will be held at the National Golf Links of America, a place where many call the home of American golf and the home of American golf course architecture. We're proud to be hosting this year's championship at the Atlantic Golf Course and the Bridge Golf Course, 2 fabulous Reese Jones designs here on Long Island. The Mid-Amateur Championship has been very special to many who have competed through the years. This year, the 30th championship, we have, at least I know of, 2 of the original competitors here, 2 Walker Cuppers, and 1 Walker Cup captain, Buddy Marucci and George Zaharinger. They're over in the corner. They played in the very first championship. Our current Walker Cup captain was the very first Mid-Amateur champion, Jim Holtgreave. He was a 2-time Walker Cupper, and his caddy in that championship is here this evening, Tom O'Toole Jr. Tom O'Toole is the chairman of the Championship Committee of the United States Golf Association. And now to say a few words to you is the president of the United States Golf Association, Jim Heiler.
Steve, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be here. Steve just mentioned Tom O'Toole, who is our Championship Committee chair. Tom and I started the day in St. Andrews, Scotland, and we just literally drove up and were able to get a shower and get up here to this wonderful reception. We're thrilled to be here at Atlantic Golf Club and the Bridge to host or to conduct our 30th Mid-Amateur Championship. This is one of our most favorite amateur championships. As Steve was saying, this part of Long Island has really had its share of majors, and this will certainly add to that, add greatly to that. Congratulations to all the contestants for being here, for qualifying in one form or another to compete in this championship. We certainly wish you all the very best of luck and hope you have a great experience. To all of our volunteers from the clubs, our committeemen, we couldn't do this without you, and thank you all for the great job that you do in supporting the USGA. So good luck this week. Above all, enjoy the experience. We're looking forward to a great championship. Thanks.
To introduce our guest of honor is our president of the Atlantic Golf Club, Mr. David Silfen.
Thanks, Dennis. Before I introduce Michael, I just would, again, on behalf of our Board of Governors, just congratulate all 264 of the participants. Hope you do extremely well here and also have some time to enjoy the wonderful life out here on the East End of Long Island. Championships like this don't happen by accident, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some of the hard work that was led by our Mid-Amateur Committee over literally the last 2.5 years. Dennis Susskind, who you have heard from, has been our general chairman since the beginning. Karen Cooey, our executive chairman. The two of them have worked tirelessly with their committee to make an evening like this and a week like this happen. Our general manager at Atlantic, Jim Mathers, and his counterpart at Bridge, Roger Willey, have also worked tirelessly. And I'd also like to echo Dennis's comments about our head professional, Rick Hartman, and his terrific staff, as well as Jeff Warren, I don't know if Jeff's here as well, and his staff up at the Bridge, and our two spectacular superintendents. You may not think they're spectacular after you go out and play in terms of the difficulty of the course, but I think you'll find that the conditions are just superb. Bob Rainham and Greg Stanley. I'd also like to make special note of two individuals, both of whom are here. Our architect and fellow member, Reese Jones, who, along with our founder, Lowell Shulman, who had a vision of this club 25 years ago when it was a working dairy farm and turned it into the wonderful facility that it is. And we're all thrilled that they're both here tonight. It's now my great pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker and fellow member, the 108th Mayor of the City of New York, Michael Bloomberg. Michael is currently in his third term as mayor, having ascended to the mayorship literally in the darkest days right after 9/11. And he has done nothing short of a spectacular job over the last 9 years in terms of the resurgence of the city, the quality of the life, both the economic and social fiber. I could go on as a lifetime resident of Manhattan, but he is really a rock star when it comes to the leadership of the city, and many hope beyond that. Before becoming mayor, Mike had a spectacular career as the founder of Bloomberg Media Company, and before that, a friendly competitor of mine down on Wall Street at Solomon Brothers. Michael is also, for those of you that do not know, extraordinarily generous and one of the leading philanthropists in this country. Does it quietly, but helps numerous philanthropic organizations around the country and, for that matter, around the world. But Michael is also a golfer. In addition to Atlantic, he belongs to many clubs around the country, and in fact around the world. He may not have the lowest handicap at this club, but there's no one at this club or any other club that has the passion and the love of the game and works harder on his game and is a really appropriate person to have a chance to speak to all of you. So without further ado, Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
Well, David, thank you, and good evening, everyone. I unfortunately, you should know, did not get an invitation to play here this time, but eat your heart out. I did get an invitation to play at Martha's Vineyard with the president about 4 weeks ago, People say, what was it like? Well, there were 30 carts going around with Secret Service people with machine guns and everything else. There were 5 caddies to carry his clubs, and 3 guys who I was told were there to wash his balls. Actually, that didn't come out the right way, but that's nevertheless, anyways. When David Silfen asked me to come out and talk, I said, well, you know, this is a group of golfers. What do they want to hear about? And he said, well, you could talk about the Atlantic Golf Club. And I said, you know, I've been playing here for 10 years. I don't know anything about the Atlantic Golf Club. I'm always in the fescue. I don't think I've ever been in the middle of any hole. He said, well, you'll be able to tell them some stories anyway. So I am a golfer. My objective is to play better than bogey golf. Some days I do, some days I do not. But I take lessons from more pros probably than anybody in the history of the world. Single-handedly, I am supporting that entire industry. And there is a club I used to be a member of, Century, up in Westchester, New York, and they've got a great pro, Nelson Long. And I once said to Nelson, I will pay you an enormous amount of money, but only based on performance. Nelson had given me some lessons and said, not a chance. It tells you how much ability I have. I do have also, I run a bunch of golf courses. New York City has 13, and we're building a 14th golf course. 14th golf course, going to be a good course. Jack Nicklaus has designed it. It's up in the Bronx. And out of our 5 boroughs, 4 of them have, every one of them has at least 2 golf courses, and there are driving ranges in every borough, even 2 driving ranges in Manhattan. So New York City is a little bit of a golf-crazy place. You can't get on any of these courses. They are all very good. We've farmed out the management of them. American Golf is one of the companies that runs a bunch. And these courses are, you know, they're not quite as good as Bethpage Black, which I think is the best public course I have ever played on. I don't know how many of you played. It's a state course out in Bethpage, Long Island, but I would urge you to do that. They had the US Open there a few years ago, and they have flags where Tiger hit his drive. I have never gotten up to where he hit his drive without at least having 2 shots to get there, which tells you how much power I have. Anyways, I was supposed to talk a little bit about the economy and tell you what's going on in this world. So I thought I'd take just 2 minutes, and then some people had some questions. I am not going to run for president, incidentally. Don't even ask that. Susan Jones, Reese's wife, said she wrote my name in on the last election. That was the only vote I got. Even I didn't do that. That reminds me of a story, because you and I were talking about it before. I play at a course in Nassau County, Long Island, Deepdale. David mentioned it's a great course. And I was playing there, and I had 2 friends that were playing earlier in the day. And this is a true story. 2 guys were playing, and the 2 women were playing in front of them, and the women were a little bit slow. So one of them said, I'll go up and ask him to move along a little bit. He starts walking up, gets halfway there, and all of a sudden turns around and comes back and says to his friend, he said, oh my God, this is, you won't believe this, but that's my wife playing with my mistress. Other guy said, don't worry about it. I'll go up and I'll ask him to play a little faster. So he goes up, gets about halfway there. He comes back, says, small world. I heard that the other day. I had to work it in some place or other. The other story, and then I'll get off because I hate all these golf jokes, but at Deepdale on the 18th hole, there's a lake right near the hole, and I was playing there, and I was ready to kill myself. I said to the caddy, I think I'm going to jump in that lake and drown myself. And he said, Mayor Bloomberg, you can't keep your head down that long. I would like attribution if you use any of these stories. Anyways, let me tell you just a little bit about what's going on. New York City's economy is doing very well. We have record tourism. We've created in the last year 10% of all the jobs, all the private sector jobs created in the United States were created in New York City. And it's because tourism is booming and the financial sector is actually doing much better than people understand. Media is doing better than the numbers would indicate. People are coming to live in New York. Our population is at a record high. But the rest of the country is not doing so well. And I think we'll get through this next election, and then it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. There's a crisis of confidence in this country. I think we all know that. And we've got to get the president to be the cheerleader. I've talked to him about that. And I think that if we all pull together, both the Republicans and the Democrats, who incidentally do not seem to have any interest in pulling together, but they're going to have to do that if this country is going to work its ways out of its problems. We have some big problems that Congress can fix, and only they can fix. But they show no inclination to do so, and unless they fix it, the future is really problematic for America. One is immigration. We desperately need immigrants coming into this country. There's an enormous number of jobs today that are going begging, and there are a lot of people who are looking for work, but the skill sets don't match at all. That we passed this health care bill, and whether you like it or not, we've created an enormous demand for doctors that we don't have and nurses that we don't have. We educate these people, but then we don't give them green cards. And unless we change the immigration policies, you're going to see the pharmaceutical industry moving to India. You're going to see all the high-tech companies moving out of the United States. You should go up to Vancouver and see all of the West Coast technology companies that have offices up there because the engineers can get into Canada from around the world, but they can't get into the United States. And this is going to be a bigger and bigger problem as we go forward. And unfortunately, immigration has become a political football with not a lot of thought going on behind it. Unless this country starts opening its borders again, we are not going to be able to repeat the past where every wave of immigrant came in and then for a couple of decades it was what really fueled the economy. We also have a deficit that Congress does not seem willing to address. I think that's pretty obvious. Whether deficits matter or not, only time will tell. But what is clear is that there is no appetite to cut anything in government. There's no appetite to raise revenues. And so this country is going to struggle on. I met with some people from Greece this morning. Greece's economy, if you look at their balance sheet, is better than the United States is now. They can do more damage because it's a small country. A big country like ours, people have to deal with us. But we have these problems. Social Security is going to go bankrupt. Congress is going to have to do something about that. The public education system in this country is a disgrace, and it's not getting very much better. I would urge all of you to go and see a movie, which I'm going to see Tuesday, but I've read enough reviews, and I know the guy that made it. It's called Waiting for Superman, and it's a story of what's wrong with public education in our country. And whether you have kids or not who are going to go to public schools, the kids going to these public schools are the voters who are going to determine your future as you get older. And so we all really do have a big vested interest in making sure that we give our kids a good education, and we are not doing that. We're spending more money per capita than we ever have before, more money than any other country in the world. We have smaller class sizes than we've probably ever had before, and yet we keep dropping down in the ratings. We're 25th or 30th. In terms of how well our kids perform in math tests and reading comprehension tests and those kinds of things. And every one of these things is such a political football these days that Congress doesn't seem to be able to help it. The states keep spending money. Most of them are technically bankrupt, although states can't go bankrupt. The cities in this country are struggling. There's an enormous number of people who have lost their houses and have lost jobs, and the prognosis for them is just not good. So anyways, I'll stop talking. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer a few questions. Yes, sir. And then.
What's your opinion on the estate tax?
Well, I've always been in favor of an estate tax in the context that I think these dynasties don't go on, and really, if you take a look at Europe, they would have been better off with estate taxes. It doesn't give the next generation a chance, or people who aren't members of the Lucky Sperm Club, is the way they're described. So, I don't like any taxes, but on balance, from a social policy point of view, the estate tax is probably something I support, and probably something the country needs. There's no such thing as a good tax, but if you want an army, if you want to have services, this Tea Party outrage, which it's interesting, the Tea Party isn't really a party, and they don't seem to have any specific position on social values. It's not pro-choice or pro-life. It's not burning flags or any of the social issues that come up. It is a frustration party. They want things that are mutually inconsistent. They want to cut the size of government, but when you ask them, they don't want to cut anything that they use. There's the ultimate ridiculous statement that was made by somebody that said, "You keep your filthy government hands off my Medicare and Medicaid." I mean, that's exactly what, you know, people, this country, they are frustrated. Things haven't worked. They know that. They don't know why, and they're casting about. And some of the people that they've nominated probably aren't the people with the kind of judgment that you would want and maturity that you would want in Congress, although you can blame Congress for the gridlock that we have now. I think whether you like this president or not, he's got a very difficult hand with the fractures, with the partisanship in Washington. Any other questions anybody has? So you certainly do not want, I can't see over there. Yes, sir. Yes. I'll repeat the question. Go ahead. The question is, New York City is very dependent on the financial industry, obviously, although interesting as a percentage, we're a lot less. I mean, there are cities like LA, for example, is much more dependent on a handful of banks than we are, just because New York is diverse and it is so big. If you look at my company's business, Wall Street is growing. We're at record number of terminals. Now, some of that may be taken away from somebody else. But people who've gotten laid off in Wall Street pretty much have found other jobs, because it's the same people that take the terminals. And in New York City, we only lost a third of the jobs that everybody had forecasted. That business has come back. The big problem is that the banks have money, but they are unwilling to loan it because there's a crisis of confidence more than anything. People don't want to borrow because of a crisis of confidence. People don't want to hire because of a crisis of confidence. People aren't going out and looking for a job because they don't have confidence. And I think, you know, the federal government's job is to be the cheerleader for the country. They should regulate. They've got to stop abuses and, you know, all the normal stuff that you would expect out of government. But they can't be out there criticizing everybody that's a success. And I have a lot of friends in the financial communities who, most of them, I think, probably were moderate Republicans, but they became convinced that Obama was the right kind of change. I think Sarah Palin scared some of them off, and John McCain was, you know, from a different era. And so they voted for and raised money and gave a lot of money to the president. And one of them said to me what he hadn't counted on. He knew he was going to have to pay more taxes, but he didn't count on being vilified. And I think he can. It's Congress that has sort of taken this over of anybody that's successful is bad. And that doesn't give business the kind of confidence that they need. And Congress wants to go and let's have another spending stimulus thing. The problem is not the money. There's some things that money isn't the answer to. It is leadership, and you know, I've said that to the president, and he's, I think, understands that, and he's trying to, you know, this is a different world to him. He doesn't come from the business world. He doesn't have anybody in his cabinet from the business world. Larry Summers is a very smart guy. He will be missed. I don't know who they'll get to succeed him. Tim Geithner is a very smart guy, but he, once again, is an academic. There's nobody in the White House that has ever met a payroll. And you can't, you know, it's like you read a book about skiing and think you can ski. Management is not that way. You can't read a book about management. You have to have been there and gone through the pains and know what you're doing and know how other people behave. So, yes, sir, back there.
What's going to happen with the mosque after 9/11?
Mosque 9/11. Let me put the mosque in context. At one level, it is a mosque that's been open for a year. The people that go there would like to develop a big cultural center for $100 million. To the best of my knowledge, they have zero money. So I don't think there's anything likely to be done with that. There is another mosque 2 blocks further away from Ground Zero. Ground Zero may be hallowed ground, but we have lots of porno parlors right on the border of. So let's not get too carried away with the mosque here. And when somebody said, well, let's move it some distance, I said, well, what's the appropriate distance? Because whatever it is, it's not going to be enough. And it's like saying to Rosa Parks, you know, you can't sit in the front of the bus. What about the middle of the bus? I don't think so. The mosque, another way to look at the mosque is plain and simple, the First Amendment. This is a First Amendment issue. The government shouldn't tell you what to say. It shouldn't tell you who to pray to, how to pray, where to pray, whatever. And if you want the terrorists to win without us firing a shot, then let's do exactly what some of these other countries do. They don't allow people to practice their religion. They don't allow people to say what they want to say. Somebody said to me, well, you can't go build a church in Saudi Arabia, so why should we allow them to build a mosque here? Yes, that's exactly the difference between Saudi Arabia and America. And this has become an election year issue. A guy named Rick Lazio was one of the 2 Republican candidates for governor of the state of New York. He turned his whole campaign into an anti-mosque thing. He was supposed to win. He lost 65-35. People walked away from it. And in any case, the mosque issue goes away on November 3rd when nobody can remember how to spell mosque. But it just isn't. When you talk to the families of those who lost somebody in downtown 9/11, not 100%, but most would say, hey, come on, why shouldn't people be able to pray? I was having dinner a few weeks ago at a hamburger joint my girlfriend and I go to, and this big hulking guy comes up and says, can I talk to you? I said, sure. And there I am with a hamburger in one hand and a beer in the other. I said, what do you want to talk about? The mosque. And I was thinking, I don't need this. And he said to me, he had just come back from 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he said some of his friends didn't come back. And he said, why don't you go out and say it again and explain to people why we're over there fighting and why my friends gave their lives. And it is for these values. And I, for the life of me, don't understand why anybody feels so threatened. If somebody had wanted to build a church or a synagogue or a temple, would you say the same thing? Of course not. And, in New York City, we have probably 250,000 Muslims, more from Southeast Asia probably than from the Middle East. They tend to be college-educated, entrepreneurial. And one of the, it's really funny, I don't know any of you know New York City well enough to know where Bay Ridge is. Bay Ridge is down by the Verrazano Bridge in Brooklyn. It is the ultimate Irish Catholic conservative neighborhood. Out of that whole neighborhood, I've run 3 times, maybe 2 people didn't vote for me, and we're getting their names right now as we speak. And it's also a big Muslim community. And you go down the street, and there are all these Irish bars and an occasional sign in Arabic and people walking the streets. In New York City, everybody gets along. And a lot of the people criticizing the building of a mosque come from places around the country and probably never been to New York and probably never been in a mosque, much less seen one. So it's a political issue more than anything else. But to me, it's plain and simple. You either believe in the First Amendment or you don't. Anything else? You're here to tell me I've got to go. I've got to get back to New York City. I've got to work for a living. I get paid $1 a year. It's actually 93 cents after they take out FICA. True story. And I have every one of my checks, and I always have this vision of our commissioner for the Department of Finance at the end of the year trying to balance the books, and it's off by 93 cents, and he can't figure out where. Well, it's me.
You're not overpaid.
I'm not overpaid. Or as somebody once said, you get what you pay for.
Thank you.